Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy, alcoholic. Hi, Wendy. And I want to start by thanking Jerry for asking me to speak tonight. I've known Jerry for almost 4 decades. And I remember, growing up in Santa Monica, and Jerry and Jimmy Siciliano used to be very mysterious and dark, and I used to look at them. I want what they have. They were on heroin, and I got it. It was like, it's just a little bit about what it was like for me, what it was like, what happened, and what's like now. First, if you're new, welcome. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's changed my life. I love it. And a snapshot into my house would be, I had a schizophrenic mother, and the kind of violent schizophrenic mother that, would tell us things like, the milkman, don't drink the milk, the milkman's trying to poison us, and that's why I think I'm lactose intolerant today. I love Jerry's laugh. And, she would turn the gas on in the house, and it was like, my dad and her would get in a fight, and, we looked good on the outside. We had, went to private school, had a nice house, lived in a nice neighborhood, and, I got to say, my life, I'm so much happier south of Pico. It's just that we looked good on the outside, but, it's like when my dad got in a fight one night with her and went off to the bar and drank, she turned on the gas, and we were all in the house, and he came home, he put the cigarette out on the front porch, and it was like I picture it sort of like a Norman Rockwell painting as the firemen are carrying the kids out of this nice little suburban house, in sleepy Santa Monica, and which it isn't anymore, but anyway, she ended up killing herself when I was 7, and my older brother, he was like schizophrenic too, and it was like having a sleeper cell living in your own house, and it was like I was always on high alert, because, I could be sitting in the living room, and he would come in and he'd tell me the Martians have landed outside his window. And he'd want me to come see. They're getting out of his spaceship. And so, this would kind of freak me out. And, or he'd think he'd see ants. And it was just like, but he was like, he had a beautiful mind. He was making LSD in his bedroom, and he had like about 3 padlocks on the door. And my dad was just totally oblivious to this. He was like drinking his vodka, and he was an alcoholic, and he just ignored it, until the cops broke in the door one night, and around midnight, and busted through his door and took him off. And it was like you could smell the ether coming out of his bedroom. You could smell it, but my dad just like was oblivious. And so anyway, that's the kind of environment I grew up in, and it's like, those are the kind of survival skills. I had learned survival skills living in that kind of environment, and when I got sober, I was taking those kind of survival skills into relationships with me. And boy, it just didn't work, and that's why I do some Al-Anon just to keep it in check. But when I found alcohol, I took a fifth of my dad's, would get cases of vodka delivered from the Duck Blind on Wilshire. And I took a fifth of vodka, and me and this girl, Lisa, Jimmy's sister, slammed down vodka. Didn't mix it or anything, just like, swigged it out of the bottle. And it was like the first time I just felt like everything's going to be all right. I just felt, that, like, what that feels like, that immediate ease and comfort that comes from that drink. And it was like, it was on from the beginning. I needed an escape. I was looking for oblivion. And, I did drugs alcoholically too, and it's just like, I ended up, in the system, just like, primary emotion in me was rage, I was angry. And I made a decision, like, when, my mother killed herself, it was like I had wished she would die. I would wish she had died. And I was pissed at God when she did die, because I felt like, I felt like responsible. I felt like I forgot to withdraw the contract. So I was pissed at God, and I ended up getting in a lot of trouble, going in and out of institutions and juvenile halls, and I'd be like taken from my home and like put in some kind of like Mormon family in La Puente, and I, like, talk about culture shock, and it was like they were trying to convert me into their religion, and, it was just like, and then I'd like get kicked out of there, and I'd end up in San Pedro, going to some other high school, and then I'd, finally come home for a minute, and then I'd be back to juvenile hall, and I would just like be shuffled around like all these institutions, and like meanwhile just drinking and drugging and just like crazy, crazy, crazy lifestyle. I ended up in Camarillo State Hospital. When my mother killed herself, she was going in and out of Camarillo State Hospital and having shock treatment. And so I was used to her being gone. And so this one time she was gone and she wasn't coming home, my dad took me out to the diner, like to this little drive-in diner, and, I want you to keep this a secret, but your mother's dead, or she's not coming home. And I like looked at him like, for some kind of read, like, just some kind of read, and I wasn't, there was nothing. He might as well have told me that, he got his clothes out of the cleaners that day. So, I really had no mirror, when I went, and he dropped me off in the neighborhood, I started going up to everybody in the neighborhood going, my mother's dead. My mother's dead. And I was like looking for a read and trying to find out what am I supposed to do with this information? What am I supposed to do with it? No wonder I didn't know how to process my feelings or metabolize my emotions, And I was so grateful when I started working the steps and learning how to metabolize my feelings by writing, by getting it on paper, because, that anger, that rage, that primary emotion I felt all my life and felt when I first got sober and can still feel if I don't like work the steps and keep myself on a short leash. It was like, I'm like walking around the city like a loaded gun, and I need to get it out of me and onto paper. It's like taking the bullets out of the chamber, and I'm liable to fire at somebody. And, anyway, so, in and out of institutions, I ended up going to county jail. I ended up going to prison. I was in CRC, and I was like just full on, but I was married, and I ended up having 2 kids. I don't know how I did all this, and, it was like, just like, I was crazy. And so fast forward, just this kind of lifestyle and this kind of like pathetic existence. I mean, like at the end of my like insanity, I'm like in this apartment with my husband, and it's like I've got 2 boys that, one's 18 and one's, I guess he was 11, and I was like so incredibly miserable. I had started doing methamphetamine at that point. I was like my methamphetamine period. And I don't know what it's about, like what's up with methamphetamine, that it's like there's some attraction to weapons when you start doing that shit. You know, they were so shiny. I like to like look at them and hold them and clean them. It was like, I just liked weapons when I do methamphetamine. It just, and I remember like hearing the neighbors, you know, like I'd be like laying there and I'd be pissed off at him because he could sleep and I couldn't sleep, you know, and I'd be just like, oh my God. And then the people upstairs like would wake up, and I remember like looking up at the cottage cheese ceiling and like hearing the footsteps go across the floor. I'd hear the shower go on. I'd hear it go off, and I figured it was her walking across the floor. And then I'd hear heavier footsteps, and they'd walk across the floor, and the shower would go on, and they'd be in the kitchen. I'd hear the cabinets closing, and inevitably I'd hear the front door shut, and I'd hear them like walk down the stairs and go to work. And it was like, how in the hell do they do that? How in the hell do they do it? I felt so cut off. I felt so cut off from humanity and so lonely. I felt so lonely and so hopeless. You know, I didn't think there was a way out. I thought this is my life. This is what I'm destined to do. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. I can't stop. There's no way out. There's no way out. I couldn't look in the mirror anymore. I would avoid the mirror. I could not like look in my eyes. It was like, I felt like whatever life was in there, I was killing it slowly. I was dying inside. And, you know, so, you know, I was living in this place, in this apartment, and I actually moved south from here for a while. And my husband at the time was copying like the speed for this girl. And it occurred to me that, you know what, he's not just copying for her, he's cheating on me, you know? And this kind of like sunk in, you know, like it just like sunk in like that intuition, and I knew it. And it was like, you know, we cannot afford the luxury of anger like normal men and women. Anybody that had any sense would have just packed their shit and left, you know, but no, I'm gonna show him. Haven't I given him the best years of my life? You know, I'm pacing back and forth in the living room, waiting for him to come home, and it's just like, I'm gonna scare them, you know, and I have it like, I'm like tweaking and been drinking all day, and it's like, I've got the 38 up in front, on top of this entertainment unit, and so I'm like, the front door's open, the screen is hanging off, it's like broken, nobody fixes anything anymore, and I grab the gun as he pulls up, I see him pull up, I grab the gun, I run outside, and I fire at the car. And this woman that I used to see, like she'd water her plants every day, this is late at night, and she, you know, but she looks out the bay window. She looks out the bay window, and I like think to myself, what are you looking at? This is a domestic affair, you know? And he turned the corner, and I started running down with this 38. He was like pulled over around the corner. I got on the hood of the car and like held like, and I'm like, I had an out-of-body experience right there. I was like, what are you doing? You know, and it was like, as he started the car, I fired another round, and I saw her slump. And I knew that was not good. But I shot her in the arm, thank God, or, you know, I mean, I don't mean to minimize anything. I don't mean to minimize. I mean, it could have been worse. So after, you know, I did that, I ran in the house and changed my clothes so the cops wouldn't recognize me. And the cops came, they took me away, He took her, I found out later, to the hospital, bandaged her up, brought her home, and I'm like, I have nothing to metabolize my feelings anymore. I have nothing to stop the pain or the hurt or the disappointment or the grief. All that shit that I've been carrying is like, I never felt that kind of pain, but I'm holding it all together, because that's what you do when you're in jail. You don't let anybody know, what you're feeling inside, except when I'm sleeping in the bunk in the back of my dorm when I ended up getting to Sybil Brand. I used to like cry under the sheets, so nobody would hear me, because I thought crying was a sign of weakness, somewhere. That's an old idea that I had, and that's one of the lies that I used to tell. That's the kind of lies I built my life upon, that and many other lies. And, so I ended up doing a year in the county jail. He didn't testify. The one significant thing that's happened is that those feelings, those emotions, that rage, I was really tired of it. But I didn't know any other way. And I remember watching this video in the county jail, while I was there, on parenting and on self-esteem classes. And they had these 3 examples of parents who were going through divorce. And there was a video, and they showed the different ways that they dealt with it. And they followed these kids and these families as they grew up. It was years of like following these 3 families. And this two families used kids as pawns. But this one woman, and I'll never forget it, because it was like the first time anything really got in. And she says, I was so tired of being angry. And that got in. That got in. And she said she was so desperate that she did what a friend told her to do, and that was to say a prayer, "Thank you, God, for giving my children the best father that he could be." Now, I didn't feel that in any way. I didn't want to say that, but it got in here. I needed some relief because I was in so much pain. I was just, I was crushed. And I started saying that prayer every day, and it was like something happened. It dropped from here to here. And there was like a shift. I mean, I felt it. I so believe in the power of prayer, okay? I mean, it's just like, I so believe in the power of the prayer, I see how it, just the unbelievable miracles. I believe that we're sitting here through the power of prayer. It's like so good to see John take a cake for 2 years. I heard his dad share when my son was using and his son was using. I used to hear him and I used to go, God, I hope he makes it. And I would say a prayer. He's sitting here taking a 2-year cake, And it's like, I believe that it's like those prayers work, and that, that's why 2 men, Bill and Bob, 2 men, one alcoholic talking to another, and here we are, people that drink and use on a Friday night, we're seeking the solution by coming to a meeting, and it's like, when I first got out of jail, I went to Clare Women's and Children's Center. I could not, I had so much shame, and all of that shit that I carried, that was like 2 big bags of shit, resentments, loss, grief, anger, all of it. And I remember somebody saying to me, you know what, Wendy, drop the rocks and swim for the surface. That shit's going to take you down. I wasn't willing to do a 4-step initially, and I drank again because I didn't. But ultimately, it was when I had a spiritual awakening one night is when I was living in a sober living on Pico. And it was 10 minutes to 10, my older son who was using, and wanted to come home and crash. And I said, you know what, I can't help you until you want to get sober. And 10 minutes later, 4 gunshots ring out, and a kid is shot in front of my apartment. And I gotta say that I am a very selfish, self-centered alcoholic, and it's the first time ever, for some reason, I was compelled to go to that kid. I don't know if it was because it was Mother's Day. I don't know if it was because, I just hung up the phone from my son. But for some reason, I went to that kid. The cops came. They thought I was his mother. And I was talking to him as he was dying, just hang in there, just hang in there. And, you know, he ended up dying that night, and I was like freaking out. I was going, oh God, this is a sign, something's going to happen to my son. And I'm like laying in bed, and all of a sudden, I felt the presence of a loving, benevolent presence that filled me completely to the bone, and it was like everything just lifted. It just lifted, and I felt complete and utter peace. I had never felt that. Maybe as a child I felt that, but I don't recall ever feeling that. My interpretation of that experience later was I got out of the way to be of service to another human being in need. And something happened, you know? I believe we are here for one another. You know, but that's not, I don't, you know, it's like, for a selfish and self-centered alcoholic like me, it's really hard to get out of the way. But I started to embrace the program. I started to dive in, you know. It's like the disease is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. It will choose a girlfriend for you. It will choose a boyfriend for you. It will choose your job. And it would just like, it will give you so many hours that it will carve you right out of the herd. And there you are alone, like, you know, with no defense against your first drink. You know, I went to Costa Rica this summer. You know, if you would have told me in the county jail, you know what, stick around and you'll go places, you'll do things that you've never dreamed possible. I would have thought you were out of your mind. But I was in Costa Rica, you know, and when I was in Costa Rica, we went on a river rafting trip, you know, and on a river, you know, with class 3 and 4 rapids, you don't want to go down there without a guide. You want a guide. The guide would tell you, like, dive or like dig in, or like, you know, back up. And you need that around here because it is a ride. Alcoholics Anonymous, like what I started to see, you know, is I thought it was a dog-eat-dog world and that people were out to get me. But what I started to see was the kindness operating in the human heart in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a friend that I've had for 12 years. When my refrigerator broke on that street in Pico, he took me to Sears and bought me and my younger son a refrigerator, you know? And I started to pray to God to heal my heart, you know, to heal my heart. And I started to see, you know, it's like I can either create a case that there is no God, well, look at the kids, they're going to hell in a handbasket, or look at the war in Iraq, look at our president. I can create this case that God is not operating, God is not here. Or I can start looking for synchronicity, the evidence of God that happens in coincidence. And I saw it everywhere. When I started to pray to God to heal my heart, my older son got arrested. He got arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, went in front of the same judge in the same court that I had been in. Only I'm reliving my experience sober, and I'm able to show up for my son, you know? And I don't do that. That was so new for me, to be present and to show up. And I was able to get in front of that judge, you know, and I made amends to that judge in front of my son as he was handcuffed there, you know. And I started to talk to my ex-husband, you know, and I started making amends, you know. Initially it was a lightweight amends, the best I could do at the time. But he was still using, and then he got arrested, and he was placed in the county jail with my son in the same cell. You know, the cops didn't do it, believe me. That was God. That was the evidence of God, that there was a healing taking place. When everything seemed to be falling apart in my life, everything was falling in place for a healing. That I can look at something and say, this is really, really bad. This is really bad. My son is in jail, my ex-husband's in jail, or I can look at it and say, my God, look at this. This is a miracle. You know, I'm like communicating to my ex-husband. You know, I went to Christmas breakfast with him, like with his new wife, the one I haven't shot. I sat across from him and her kids and my kids and wished him no ill wrong. I wished him the best. I was relieved of the bondage of him and only wanted the best for him. Do you know the freedom in that? Do you know the freedom of not being defined by the circumstances? For so long, I was pointing at everybody else. It's my mother's fault. It's my father's fault. He's the alcoholic. It's my husband. Oh, if my kids would only straighten out. You know, I could point outside of myself to the problem, but I found that the problem was me, you know, and I had to clean house, trust God, and help others. And what I've found is this magic, and this connection to something that is a power much greater than myself. In that apartment alone, I had no power to stop using. When I came in here, I was hopeless, and I got a transfusion of hope from you. And I was surrounded, the wagon surrounded me, and I was scooped up by Alcoholics Anonymous. And since then, I've stayed, and I love this program. It's like the amazing things that have happened. When I got back from Costa Rica, I got news, the first meeting I went to, that this beautiful girl, that all the promises were coming true. You know, she bought the house on PCH. She was getting married. You know, she's a beautiful girl, intelligent, creative. She hung herself. Now, I talked to her the day before I left for Costa Rica, you know, and it was like I got like hit in the stomach. And like I started like, what the fuck happened? You know, what happened? Well, what happened was she relapsed. She drank because she couldn't deal with all of the pressure of all this good stuff happening, you know. That's like, she couldn't deal. And so he left, and she hung herself. And her daughter found her, you know. The window of opportunity is closed for her. No more opportunity. Anybody sitting in this room tonight has a window of opportunity. We have a window of opportunity, and what are we going to do with it? You know, it's like life wants to live, you know. It's like, you know, like I said, I've been to like places that I could have never imagined. I have the most incredible relationships that I treasure. Would I want to throw that all away? No, I have to keep myself on a very, very short leash. You know, I stay plugged into meetings. I talk to alcoholics every day because you can't keep it if you don't give it away. Like I said, the disease, the ism that I separate myself will carve me out of the herd, you know, in a job, in a relationship. You know, it's like, I don't want to lose this gift. I don't want to lose this gift. It's the best thing. It's the best gift that has ever been given to me. And I've found that, like my experience, like the promises, like we won't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will see how our experience can benefit our fellows. I started experiencing that when I walked into every single juvenile hall that I'd ever been in as a kid. I went to Sylmar, I went to Las Padrinas, I went to Central. And when I started talking to those kids, it was like so healing for me because a part of me was like showing up for me in every little kid that I talked to or every girl. When I work with others, it's like I have life experience and I can pull it out of this bag. But what's the point of my life experience if I don't use it to help another human being? I might as well close the bag, you know. But when I use it to help another human being, it's like a win-win situation. And this is not who I am. I am the selfish, self-centered girl that like, well, you know, I'll show him and run out the door with a 38. That's me. I will hold a resentment until the wheels fall off, you know. I listened. I took guidance. You know, my thinking was the problem when I got here and still can be the problem if I don't check myself. I can't fix the problem at the level of the problem. I need guidance. I need a guide. and I need you, and I need to stay in the middle of the herd. I love Jerry. I love Jerry. He is like, I wanted what he had back then, and when I first got sober, he was the secretary of Rodeo, and I wanted what he had then. So I look to and the people that showed up to support me and all of you that are here, I just hope you stay. I hope you use this window of opportunity and increase the odds. Thank you for my life.